The next curve stretched longer every second, as if the road didn't want me to reach the end. I remember thinking that sentence exactly as my headlights traced the white line ahead. At first, it was only a feeling, one of those strange impressions that come when you've been driving too long at night. Your brain begins inventing patterns in the dark. The highway was empty. No houses, no distant taillights, not even the flicker of a roadside diner sign. Just two pale beams of light cutting through fog that hovered inches above the asphalt like breath on glass. The hum of my tires filled the car, steady and hypnotic. I had been on that stretch of road for maybe 20 minutes when the curve appeared ahead. A long, gradual bend to the right, marked by a reflective arrow sign and a guardrail vanishing into fog. Normal enough. I eased off the gas and guided the car toward it. But something about the curve felt wrong. Not visibly wrong at first, just longer than expected. Curves have a rhythm when you drive them, an instinctive sense of when they should end. Your hands know how far to turn the wheel before the road straightens again. This one kept going. The fog thickened around the guardrail. My headlights slid across damp metal and disappeared into gray nothing. 10 seconds passed. 20. 30. The bend continued. I checked the speedometer. 50 kilometers an hour. Normal. Still turning. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 2:14 a.m. The hum of the tires grew louder as if the road surface had changed. But when I looked down, it was the same pale asphalt reflecting my headlights. The curve went on. A prickling sensation crawled up my arms. Eventually, the guardrail faded away, replaced by trees standing too close to the road. Tall trunks slick with mist. The headlights swept across them as I steered. Tree, 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 tree. Then the same tree again. I frowned. A thick oak with a jagged split down the middle passed through my beams. Its bark gleamed wetly. 3 seconds later, it appeared again. Same split, same angle. I slowed the car. The hum of the tires dropped to a low whisper. The tree passed once more. My stomach tightened. That's not possible, I muttered. The curve continued. I looked back at the dashboard clock. 2:14 a.m. Still. Maybe it had only been a few seconds. But it didn't feel like seconds. The GPS screen flickered softly beside the steering wheel. The map showed the highway bending right, then straightening after about 200 meters. According to the map, I should already be through the curve. Instead, the road bent endlessly into fog. I tapped the screen. The little arrow that represented my car trembled in place, then froze. The fog outside thickened further, swallowing the trees beyond 10 meters. The headlights reflected back at me in dull white halos. That was when I saw the sign again, a reflective arrow pointing right, the same one from the beginning of the curve. I slowed to 40. The sign slipped past my window with a brief flash of white. My heartbeat quickened. Another 30 seconds passed. And there it was again. The arrow sign. Same scratches across the metal. Same dent in the post. I gripped the steering wheel harder. The tires hummed. The fog pressed against the windshield. The road kept bending. 2:14 a.m. The second hand on the clock ticked forward. 2:15. Relief washed over me. Then it flickered back. 2:14. I stared at it. The second hand jerked once, twice, and reset. A cold weight settled in my chest. I rolled down the window a few centimeters. Damp air slipped inside, carrying the smell of wet soil and something metallic. The silence outside was absolute. No insects, no wind, just the soft whisper of tires against pavement. The road curved, and curved, and curved. Another arrow sign appeared. I laughed nervously. Okay, I said aloud to the empty car. Very funny. Maybe I'd missed a turn somewhere. Maybe the highway looped. Maybe the same split oak tree slid through my headlights again. My laughter stopped. The thought came slowly, forming like condensation on glass. What if the curve wasn't repeating? What if it was stretching, resisting? The idea felt absurd. But every time I expected the road to straighten, it leaned away further into fog, like something pulling it forward, just out of reach. I tested it. I accelerated. The tires roared louder against the asphalt. The headlights surged ahead. The fog parted briefly, and the curve bent sharper. My stomach lurched. The road didn't feel longer. It felt reactive, as if it knew I was trying to finish it. I slowed again. The bend relaxed slightly. My hands trembled on the wheel. "Someone's watching," I whispered. The thought came uninvited. Not someone on the roadside. Something inside the road. Inside the pattern of it. The repeating trees. The looping clock. The frozen GPS. Like a test. The arrow sign appeared again. I stopped the car beside it. The engine idled softly. Fog drifted past the headlights. I stared down the curve ahead. It vanished into pale gray nothing. For a moment I considered turning around. But the mirror behind me showed only more fog. And a road that looked perfectly straight. No curve. Just a long, empty highway disappearing into darkness. My throat tightened. The curve existed only in front of me. The dashboard clock reset again. 2:14 a.m. The realization settled slowly, horribly. The road wasn't preventing me from leaving. It was preventing me from finishing. Like a question waiting for the right answer. I released the brake and let the car roll forward slowly. The tires hummed. The arrow sign faded behind me. The bend continued. But this time I didn't try to reach the end. I drove carefully, patiently, matching the curve instead of fighting it. And after a while, minutes or hours, I couldn't tell, the fog ahead thinned. The trees stopped repeating. The guardrail returned. The curve began to close. My chest filled with cautious relief. Finally, the headlights reached the end of the bend. The road straightened. Beyond it stood a structure I hadn't expected. A small checkpoint booth straddling the highway. Dim yellow lights glowed inside dusty windows. A sign above it read, "Road evaluation complete." I slowed to a stop. The booth door creaked open. Something stepped out. At first I thought it was a person. Then I saw the reflective surface of its face. Smooth like a road sign, blank except for faint white lines resembling lane markings. It approached the driver's window. My heart pounded. The figure tilted its head slightly. A voice emerged from it, layered with the faint hum of tires. "You adjusted." My mouth felt dry. Adjusted to what? The figure turned and gestured toward the endless curve behind me. "Most drivers try to conquer the road," it said. The fog stirred gently. "You chose to follow it." A pause. Then it leaned closer to the glass. The reflective surface of its face showed a distorted image of the road, stretching far beyond the horizon. "You may continue." Relief flooded through me. I shifted the car into gear. The booth lights flickered. The barrier lifted. I drove forward onto the straight highway. The fog cleared completely. Stars appeared overhead. After a few seconds, curiosity made me glance into the rearview mirror. The checkpoint was gone. No booth, no lights, just the same curve behind me. Endless. And then I noticed something that made my hands tighten around the wheel. The dashboard clock had finally moved forward. 2:15. But the GPS map had changed. The little arrow representing my car no longer sat on a highway. Instead it rested on a thin gray line labeled Active Test Route. And beneath it, in small blinking letters, Subject 247, Proceed to next curve. A car behind me flashed its brights, but the light came from inside its cabin. At first I thought I was imagining it. Night driving does that sometimes. Long highways, empty lanes, the low, constant hum of tires against asphalt. Your eyes start inventing things in the mirrors. Reflections stretch strangely in fog. Passing shadow looks like movement. But the flash had been too bright. Too close. My rearview mirror glowed white for a split second, as if someone had ignited a camera flash directly behind my head. I glanced up again. The highway stretched through low fog that hovered just above the road like pale smoke. My headlights carved 2 tunnels through it, illuminating the broken center line and the endless ribbon of asphalt ahead. Behind me, about 5 car lengths back, another vehicle followed. Its headlights were on, but they looked Dim. Not dim like old bulbs. Dim like they weren't the source of the brightness I'd just seen. I squinted into the mirror. The shape of the car was hard to make out through the fog. Dark. Low. Maybe a sedan. The beams from its headlights spread across the road, but they were faint, dull yellow. Then the mirror filled with light again. A sudden white burst. I flinched. It was too high. The glare came from above the headlights, flooding the inside of the car behind me. For a split second, I could see the interior glowing like a lantern. Then it vanished. The headlights returned to their dull yellow glow. I adjusted the mirror slightly. Probably someone messing with their phone, I muttered. But even as I said it, the explanation didn't sit right. Phone screens don't flash like that. And the light had been centered, like it came from the driver's seat. The highway curved gently through a dense stretch of forest. Trees leaned over the road, their branches swallowed by fog. The only sound was the steady hum of my tires and the faint whisper of wind slipping along the car's frame. The car behind me kept the same distance. 5 lengths, maybe 6. Too far to see clearly. Another flash. The rearview mirror went white again. I sucked in a breath. This time the light lasted longer, half a second, maybe more. Long enough for me to see shapes inside the cabin. Not a person. Not clearly. Just vertical shadows. Like bars. The light died. The car returned to its dull yellow headlights. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. Okay, that was weird. I slowed slightly, easing my speed from 70 down to 60. If the driver was impatient, they'd pass. The engine softened as I lifted my foot. The hum of the tires dropped to a quieter tone. The car behind me slowed too, still 5 lengths back. Still perfectly centered in my lane. The fog thickened as the highway dipped through a low valley. Moisture clung to the windshield, turning reflections into soft halos. Another flash erupted in the mirror. This one was brighter. Bright enough to paint the inside of my car in pale white light. For an instant, I saw my own face reflected faintly in the windshield. And behind it, in the mirror, movement. Inside the following car. Something shifting where the driver should be. The light vanished again. My chest tightened. I sped up. 70. 80. The engine rose to a deeper hum. The fog streamed faster past the windshield. In the mirror, the car kept up effortlessly. 5 lengths back. Always 5. I checked the side mirror. The car's silhouette looked wrong from the angle. Its roofline seemed taller than it should be. The cabin stretched higher than most sedans. And the windows looked too dark. Not tinted. Opaque. Like mirrors reflecting the fog instead of showing the inside. Another flash. The entire rear window filled with white. I swore and flicked the mirror downward to reduce the glare. But curiosity pulled it back up. I needed to see. The road straightened into a long empty stretch cutting through open land. No trees now, just fields hidden beneath drifting fog. No exits. No lights. Just us. Me. And that car. The next flash came without warning. White light flooded the mirror again. This time I leaned forward slightly, trying to see past the glare. And I noticed something strange. The headlights of the following car hadn't changed. They were still dim. Still yellow. The bright light was clearly coming from inside the cabin. From where the driver should be. Except the light didn't shine outward like a flashlight. It filled the car. Like the interior itself was glowing. The shape inside shifted again. My stomach dropped. The vertical shadows I'd seen earlier weren't bars. They were outlines. Thin, pale shapes. Dozens of them. Standing upright. Packed tightly inside the cabin. Another flash. My breath caught. For a split second, the glare sharpened the silhouettes. They looked like figures. Tall. Narrow. Featureless. And there were far too many to fit inside a car. The lights snapped off. Darkness returned. I realized I was gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. "This isn't real," I whispered. I slowed again, deliberately this time. 50. 40. If the driver wanted to pass, they had plenty of room. The car slowed with me. 5 lengths. Still centered behind me. Still silent. Then something else happened. When I glanced in the mirror again, the car wasn't directly behind my vehicle anymore. It had shifted slightly to the left, matching the angle of my mirror. My chest tightened. I moved my head to the right. The car drifted right too, as if adjusting itself so I could keep seeing inside it. A cold realization crept into my mind. It wasn't following my car. It was following my gaze. Another flash. This time I didn't look away. The cabin filled with white. The silhouettes sharpened. And I finally understood what I was seeing. They weren't figures standing inside the car. They were reflections. Rows and rows of reflections. Of me. Hundreds of pale versions of my own face staring forward from inside the vehicle. Each one seated where a passenger should be. Each one illuminated by the same internal light. My heart slammed against my ribs. The flash faded. The car returned to darkness. But I couldn't stop staring. And slowly, the headlights of the car behind me began to dim further, until they went out completely. Only the interior light remained. Soft now, steady. A pale glow filling the cabin like moonlight in water. Inside it, the rows of reflections moved. Every single one of them turned their heads slightly toward me. Another realization struck me then. I checked the rearview mirror again, and my stomach dropped into a hollow pit. The car behind me didn't have a driver. The driver's seat was empty. All the faces inside the glowing cabin were looking forward, watching the road, watching me drive, as if they were waiting for the moment when my seat would be empty too. And then the car behind me drifted closer. For lengths. 3. Still silent. Still glowing. And in the mirror, one of the reflections slowly raised its hand, pressing its palm against the inside of the glass, right where my rear window would be, waiting for me to flash my lights back.